Welcome to the gray area. Today we have an amazing DJ by the name of Randomdoug here. I'm going to call him Doug, but Randomdoug is how you can find him across social media. So make sure you follow him, first of all, and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. First of all, just give us your elevator pitch. Who are you? What's your situation?
Well, essentially, I've been DJing, I guess, off and on now for about 15 years. I started getting my residencies in Toronto here in about 2010.
Okay.
So, but actively DJing, I guess, at clubs for like 15 years.
How did you first get interested in being a DJ? Like, what's the first inkling of thought you thought, like, yeah, maybe?
Yeah, you know what? I would say, this is probably, we're looking at 2002 or 2003.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably at Government Nightclub, which is no longer here. It was closed in 2012, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in the drink, probably listening to DJs Manzone and Strong at the time. And I would say that was probably the first time I kind of like, okay, I could probably do that. I really love the music. And I guess the second time close to that would be I was at this infamous after hours called Comfort Zone, where a lot of DJs kind of propelled a lot of their international career from. So that would be the second spot where I'd say, I was like, because I don't know, I was just there on a Sunday and I saw, guys walking in with their bag and I'm like, oh, that's really fucking cool, So I'm like, I think I could probably do that. And I mean, the music was just, for me, I just loved it so much. I mean, I can't even, but there's so many other moments other than those times I could say that, really kind of propelled it. It just kind of, just being out at the time, Government, Footwork, which is now Coda, the same owners, obviously Comfort Zone, those were the spots where I would say that cemented my love for the music and, kind of propelled me to kind of, finally give it a shot or try DJing. Like we're going back here to like 2006, where a friend of mine, he got equipment and I was lucky enough to kind of learn that way.
Right.
Yeah. So,
So you're interested in it. Okay. That's one thing, but how does one, you said you had a friend, how does one get their shot to step up and actually do it? In your case, at least.
Well, for me, I was hanging out a lot at, Comfort Zone at the time. And I kind of started to, luckily enough, kind of was able to start to hang around with the DJs there. Like I was going there almost every weekend and just, I politely asked at the beginning, I'm like, oh, can I just like watch you guys at a distance, what you do? And the DJs at the time were nice enough to let me do that. And there was so many DJs because it was open for so long, that would allow me to do that. And then I kind of got close to one of the DJs on the Saturdays. His name is El Duran. And he kind of let me kind of hang out at the back. And then I guess kind of cemented my way that way. And then one day, him, El Duran, the DJ, and Paranoid Jack, who's a former resident DJ of Comfort Zone, unfortunately no longer DJs, they kind of asked me on the spot, because I went there after a small gig I had like at a small bar, and I had my DJ stuff there, like my CDs at the time. And they just asked me to hop on like randomly. And I was like, whoa. But that's kind of when I knew, I'm like, okay, these guys kind of see something in me, whatever. So that kind of started that and then propelled it from there. At the time, on those Saturdays, you had DJs like Nathan Barado, Carlo Leo, the Junkies. Like these are guys now that have went international that were playing there on that Saturday, and I was able to kind of just hang out there and just be a music fan. And at the time, right, I was starting to DJ as well, so it was cool. Yeah, so that's kind of like how it kind of got started. Yeah.
So you're based in Toronto.
Yes.
What is the club scene like in Toronto? And is it typical for people to be launched from there, do you think?
Um, I would say yes and no. Just because of where it is. I mean, in the sense of obviously a lot of guys, I think they're able to become international a little bit more easier when you're in Europe. And I know there's a few guys, I think Carlo Leo being the one, he kind of took time to kind of go to Europe and kind of build his name up there, even though after he got signed to Bullet and things like that. So I would say yes and no, but at the same time too, we do have quite a bit of guys and gals that have gone international that are from the Toronto area. And I think Toronto does have a pretty good reputation of, you know, having some pretty good talent coming from here. So I would say more yes than no.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, where have you gone beyond Toronto? Have you come to the US? Have you done anything like that?
No, unfortunately not yet, but I have played the BPM festival.
Okay.
Which
Tell us
is
about that.
yeah, so that happened in 2020. I was asked to play that, so that was amazing.
When was it in 2020?
January 2020.
So right before.
Right before. Yeah.
Do you feel like okay, so that festival happened and then COVID happened. Do you feel like you got stunted a little bit because of that?
A little bit, yeah, I would say that a little bit. But
So
at the
what
same,
was, go ahead.
yeah, no, but at the same time too, it's like, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, once again, another yes and no, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the club's got it being shut down and then they open again and they shut down. So yeah, it does obviously cause and has challenges. But yeah,
Mhm.
I would probably say yes to that.
So is DJing your full-time situation right now, or do you have another thing going
No,
on?
I do have a 9 to 5. Yeah, yeah,
Ah, man.
yeah. So it's always kind of been more or less a side gig for me. But at
Mhm.
the same time, I eventually, I mean, if it were to take it, if I were able to take it maybe full time, I mean, I could, you know, look at that. But I mean, I know there's some guys here that I know that kind of still have the full time gig, but are able to manage it and played outside of Canada and have had kind of international dates and gigs, still maintaining, I guess, the 9 to 5. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens in the future. Yeah.
You mentioned the comfort zone a second ago, and I actually read the Q&A that's online of you and the comfort zone as
Yeah.
part of my prep to talk to you.
Yeah.
And there's a story that you told on here that I would love for you to relate again in this interview. That was your answer for what's the strangest experience you've had when DJing. Now, this story took place in 2011, so maybe something stranger has happened in the decade since then, but feel free to tell that story again if you know what I'm referencing.
I'm trying to remember
I can,
which one you're referencing because I know I have a few. So
Canada Day 2011, is that enough?
oh.
Someone jumped over. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Someone jumped over. They were just so excited and they just jumped over the front area there. And then while that's all happening, the bouncer tries to get him off the stage. And then while doing that, it unhooks my laptop. At the time, I was a tractor DJ. And then, yeah, music goes off. But the cool thing is Mikey Terra, who was the next DJ coming on, he actually, you know, it was basically he was already coming on, so it came at a not too bad of a time, and then basically he just did one of those like, "Hey, way to go, Randomdoug," and then he just came in on after. So it wasn't
How long a silence did we have?
Oh, you know, we had dead air for probably like a good 10 seconds, so it wasn't too long, but you know,
it feels like a long time. And
oh, that feels like an eternity when it happens. And then me being the guy that I am, the perfectionist that I am, I got really angry and, you know, had a few gentle words to the individual afterwards. So that next time he just do it again. But at the time I was pretty pretty angry, but it happens, right? So
well, that kind of like leads into something. What is the relationship like for you with a crowd? Like, do you feed off their energy? Does it move you in a certain direction while you're working?
110%. I mean, whether you start playing more vocally or you start playing more techno or you start playing more bouncy or housey, you can kind of feel the crowd, what they're into given the time or what their mood is in, you know. And yeah, absolutely, you just ride that wave and, you know, go with the flow, and you can just feel the energy from the crowd, and you just want to give back and give them the best experience, right, at that time. So
Yes, in the middle, I have a cat, and in the middle of
yeah,
that thing.
that's cool. What's your cat's name?
This is Charlotte.
Charlotte.
I thought it'd be funny to give a cat an old lady name. Because then when you're angry at the cat, you can be like Charlotte, and it's funny. Yes. And she likes to mess with the record player in particular behind me.
Okay.
I can't have her around when I'm playing records because she'll try to scratch it like a DJ if that happens, you know. And she made me lose my train of thought, but I'm gonna come back to it right now. So what's like your has there ever been a time where you felt like you were losing a crowd and you had to draw them back in, and do you have like a go-to track for that or something? That's kind of a bizarre question, but
no, that's a great question, actually. So for me, what I've noticed over the years is people, for the most part, like house, if that makes sense. Like if I am somewhat maybe, or feel like I'm losing a crowd, if I bring back kind of those classic kind of, you know, groovy with those soulful vocals, that just seems to get people kind of grooving again. That's what for me anyways, I mean, that's, I feel like is my go-to, I guess, genre. I mean, go-to track. I mean, if you bring any type of classic house track too, that kind of gets the crowd going again. Even if it's like new, like a new crowd, like that are not as well versed with the classics, I find they'll probably like it. That's what I
so what do you define as classic, you know, because that's a broad term.
Oh, wow, man. I mean, what do you find as classic? I mean, I find like should have been a little more prepared here with like some.
Oh no, but I want your gut. That's what I want, you know.
Yeah. Oh man, like I find like stuff from like it's early 2000s or like the late 90s, you know.
Yes.
Even prior to that, I find that's kind of like the go-to, and even like stuff that's kind of reworked today that uses that kind of soulful stuff from that time, but it's not really from that time because they're using stuff from the 70s, 60s, and 80s as well, right? Like that soul, that disco, that vibe, you know.
Yeah, I mean, like everything old is new again, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because everything's cyclical. It always goes in patterns, you know.
It does. Even with the genres, I find like, you know, there was a time where minimal was kind of big in 08, 09, and now it came back like just a couple of years ago, and now it's still kind of there, but then it's fading. Like I noticed kind of like the techno, minimal, house, they go in waves over the years. Like they just kind of like come back, but the 4x4 beat kind of stays, but I find, like the genre is kind of like they make waves back and forth. Like,
I mean, like I find the patterns of it all so interesting because you can I feel like there's a through line you can always trace with this stuff, you know. So I'm going to ask you specifically if you can name a track that was particularly influential in your journey in music.
Yeah, for me, I would say this is more of a techno track, but this is a track by Renato Cohen versus Tim Deluxe. It's called
Okay.
Just Kick, but it's a Carl Cox mix on Intec Records. And that would just get me going. Like, I used to hear it in government main room, and then I would request it usually at Comfort Zone by a DJ called Joey Cons, and there were so many other DJs that used to play it as well, but that was a track that just really got me going. It still does to this day. I mean, yeah.
Well, let's go back a little farther then.
Yeah.
When's the first time, you know, child, millennial, when was the first time you felt a connection to music? Do you remember a memory as a kid?
Yes. I remember my mom putting on cassette or record of the time of, believe it or not, Lionel Richie, and me kind of jamming to that. And I remember, I mean, I'm trying to remember how old I was. It was probably like 4 or 5. I can remember it specifically and enjoying that kind of vibe, you know. The Commodore is kind of like, yeah, you know. So
The real oldies, the actual, the classic classics.
And, you know, I guess I have my mom to thank for that, for her pretty good taste in music. She likes jazz too and all sorts of cool stuff. But
so your parents were musical. This didn't come from nowhere.
No, I mean, my mom, I would say more than my dad, even though my mom didn't really play any instruments. I found her taste in music, I guess, was pretty cool, you know, at the time. Like, my dad also enjoyed music, but I would definitely say, and she's the one who pushed me to do classical piano when I was a kid and stuff like that. Yeah.
That was actually going to be my next question, if you ever played an instrument.
Yeah, so I played piano from, I guess, the age of, my mom got me started pretty young, like 4 or 5, till like about 11, or no, till 13. I got like grade 6 conservatory, and then I played the bass in high school because I wanted to be cool. I was in a little bit of a band for a bit. Yeah, so I kind of, and then, but percussion and drums, always loved that. And obviously playing the bass, I love the groovy bass lines and house tracks, and it just, the marriage just makes sense. Bass and percussion. Yeah. The funny thing is,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, the funny thing is I can even remember as a child, and like we had a vinyl or record player, and I remember being young, and this, I'm not kidding you when I say this, like actually like turning it and playing with it and not knowing what I was doing. But now looking back, I'm like, it makes sense that I guess that I did that. Even though I cannot call myself a full vinyl DJ, even though I've done it before, but that's actually my next thing where I would like to be able to play a full vinyl set. So I could call myself quote unquote a DJ. I guess I'm one of those old school guys, but I'm not saying that someone who doesn't play vinyl is not a DJ. I just feel like it's kind of like my next chapter to want to be able to do it really, or do it well and be able to play vinyl as well. So
go full analog and
yeah. I don't know if I'll get it out at a club per se, maybe, because I mean, you know, there's the record players are not as popular, and I'd have to trust like the tech who's there at the time for it. But yeah, we'll know. You never know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, if you're here in Los Angeles, just go anywhere in Silver Lake, and they'll appreciate it. That's the hipster part of town, just so you know.
Yeah.
They're all about the records.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, do you think that knowing the piano, okay, do you think that gives you an edge when going into DJing? Do you think that it gives you a certain musicality that you might not have had otherwise?
100%. I think anything like that with music theory or learning timing and something like that, it only helps with, I think, programming your set, when to bring in a track, when, you know, like just the construction and the flow and all of that, and mixing especially. I think it helps. I mean, even if someone who does it, I mean, and they have the talent or they just have that musical instinct in them, sure, they can still do well, but it definitely, I think, helps.
Well, I mean, it feels like it would get you a certain level of timing too.
Yeah.
You know, and what's the coordination? I feel like it gives you, I feel like it works so much of you when
Yeah.
you have to be doing your feet and your hands and both hands that would only naturally move over to what you'd have to do as a DJ.
Yeah.
So do you have any memories beyond the one we covered the other day of like I don't know, great nights, crazy things that happened,
Um,
favorite memories, whatever.
yeah, I mean, I would say the government 9-year anniversary party where Carl Cox played, and it was just such great lineup of headliners. That one always sticks out to me. Um, well, I mean, at Footwork, when I met my wife in 2009, we went to a John Dahlback party. That was really cool. Yeah, I mean, so many. I mean, honestly, a lot of it, those Saturdays at Comfort Zone, just hanging out with, at the time to me were like these really cool DJs, and they kind of like, let me hang out. All those times were just so cool. I mean, so many of the special events at government were really special. Uh, and so many nights at Footwork, before it turned into Coda. Yeah, I mean,
So your wife is very supportive, it sounds like.
yeah, so she's been one of the big reasons why I play a lot out is because she was there helping and kind of being like, oh, let Randomdoug play, and being the promoter as well. So that helped a lot.
So you got a wife and an agent all in one.
Kind of, yeah. She was my biggest supporters. Yeah.
So during the pandemic, I say like it's over. Um whatever, the never ending series of everything that we're in right now.
Yeah.
Uh have you how long of a hiatus did you have where you weren't able to do a set, and how has it been coming back?
Oh, so probably when things shut down in 2020, so March, April, May, June.
Almost 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I was able to do a set. It was like kind of like a renegade party outside. I remember coming and playing to probably like the time it was probably 600-700 people. That was really nice after being gone for like 7 months. And
Yeah.
then things picked back up, and then they closed down. So there wasn't really a big hiatus after that. They've always, here in Canada, unfortunately, they've been kind of like closing, shutting, opening, closing. So clubs here have been closed since December 15th. So who knows when they're gonna open back up again, but hopefully soon. So, but yeah, I notice with even me mentally when I'm not able to perform and play, it affects me. Even right now, like not being able to. Also, too, just being in that community. Like for me, I also throw parties too with my brand here, R&R, right there.
Oh,
Uh, yeah,
promotion. I'll ask you about that in a second.
yeah. So for me, I just enjoy that community and people getting together for music and being able to do events, and on top of being a DJ. So for me, even the nights that I'm not playing, I enjoy just going to the clubs and just seeing my peers, talking to my colleagues, DJs, friends, and just being in that industry. So I miss
Um,
it all.
I mean, talk to me about R&R. Talk to me about
Yeah.
your
So
brand.
yeah, so we started that a couple years ago, and we launched it, and we did like 3 or 4 parties prior to the lockdown, and then the lockdown happened, and
Right.
then yeah, yeah, we were able to do another one just recently on
Mhm.
December 11th. That was
Mhm.
really cool because, you know, we had Hatiras play, and then as the special guest, and a lot of I call them the OG heavyweights of the Toronto scene came as well, which was really cool, and it was a really good vibe. So it's both my wife and I who are co-owners, creators of the brand. So it's Return and Revolve.
About
People
to
always
ask.
think,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's Return and Revolve, and people sometimes mistake it, or they think that it's Rissa because that's my wife's nickname, and Random
Uh-huh.
Doug, which I guess you could also say that, but it's more about Return and Revolve with the music, and
So
yeah.
what was the inspiration for the words return and revolve?
Good question. I
Yeah.
mean, that's more my wife that came up with that, and I have her to thank for that. Yeah.
And you're like, oh, thanks, that works. And then
Yeah.
you, and
No,
then no more questions.
she did the write up for it and everything, and yeah, basically it's like returning to what we like, in terms
Okay.
of the community, the music, and but evolving at the same time.
But revolve, which kind of works into what we were talking about earlier with the cyclical, like
Yeah.
how everything is kind of on a, back to Lionel Richie, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. So what's next for you? Anything coming up?
No, unfortunately, because of the shutdown here, nothing's coming up. I mean, I'm supposed to play BPM this one, but unfortunately the festival got canceled. But yeah,
God.
nothing really in the works yet. But I
But
was also
this
supposed to
article.
play Coda on the 22nd, so hopefully that gets rescheduled, which it probably will. Yeah, but nothing really in the works. Once I move, so we're in the process of moving right now. Once we move to our new place, music production is actually going to be a big focus for me in the coming year. I'm putting a little more time into that, and still doing events as well with R&R, and obviously my residencies at Comfort Zone. I also play Vertigo as well, and Coda once in a while. So continuing with those, but nothing really planned as of yet. But I mean, once things get back up and running, definitely going to plan some further events with R&R and partner with other promo companies as well, and do some cool events. Yeah.
And so for the music production plans that you have, people need to go follow you across your socials, I'm assuming, for updates about where you'll be playing and for anything developing under music production.
Yeah. So my Instagram,
Randomdoug.
Doug, yeah. That's the best spot. Also to Facebook fan page, Randomdoug. Yeah, those are my two main socials. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so I found some ridiculous yes or no questions for you. Okay. And I'm just gonna throw out some random ones. All right, and then you just say it's mainly this or that, or I might throw something else in there. You just say what's the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
All right.
All right. Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Okay. Phone call or text?
Ooh. Phone call.
Okay. Facebook or Instagram?
Instagram.
All right. A mobile game or a console game? So like your phone or Nintendo?
Let's have to say console, Nintendo.
Are you an iPhone or an Android dude?
I am a newly iPhone person again.
Welcome back. Welcome back. A hamburger or a taco?
Ooh, taco.
Okay. Would you rather be on the couch or in a recliner?
Recliner.
The Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Ooh, tough one. I wish I could say both. I guess Rolling Stones.
I don't think that's the conventional answer. So I feel like most people would have said Beatles. So you're a little bit different than others, if you will. Okay. What, taking all dance music out of the equation, what is your favorite genre of music?
R&B.
R&B. Would you rather, I wrote down a bunch, so I'm deciding which one I think is the best here because we're close. Are you more of a movie at home or a movie in the theater kind of guy?
Movie at home.
The meat or the vegetables?
Vegetables. Although I love it, but
I'm just saying again, like unconventional. I wasn't expecting it. And Marvel or DC?
have to say DC. Batman's my favorite. Yeah.
I like that. And Star Wars or Star Trek in that?
Star Trek.
See, I just had a feeling you were going to say Star Trek because you went with the answer that most people wouldn't on each of those. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because I feel like, Star Wars is more commonly popular and Star Trek is more of like the cool people like Star Trek. I don't know. That's my opinion. And finally, if you were going to recommend one track for people to go listen to right now, what would that be?
It would have to be Another Day in My Life. And it's a Louis Vega retouch.
Amazing.
Yes, absolutely. Love that track.
Okay, Doug. Thank you for joining us on The Gray Area, where we talk about how you came to be you. I hope that you are able to come back strong as soon as everything stops shutting down.
I hope so. Yes. And thank you for having me. This is the first time I've really done one like this before, so I'm honored.